Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the EDC Coffee Chat. We are happy to have Dr. Dan Underwood on with us this morning. He and I are both going to present on the designation that the areas of Clallam and Jefferson County have received. And we also have on with us Cindy Brooks, the sister organization of Clallam EDC for Jefferson County, EDC Team Jefferson. She is their executive director. Hi, Cindy, and will be one of the core team members of the Natural Resources Innovation Cluster Center that we have put together for the two county areas that we were awarded that designation by the state through Economic Development Administration funding. So with that brief background, Dan Underwood has done extensive economic studies for our county, the Black Ball study, a lot for the port, and a lot of work helped us write the 5-year plan, the economic plan for Clallam EDC that's on our website, clallam.org/5-year plan. And with that, I will let Dan say a few words and I'll be happy to share a screen with the slides. Dan.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me here, Colleen. Why don't you go ahead and jump into the slides and let's go. We got a long story to share.
Okay. All right. There we go. And I will do slideshow from the beginning.
Okay, that's not the beginning.
I know. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Okay. You know, the exegesis for the Natural Resources Innovations, I think it's supposed to be plural, Innovation Center, really, I think goes back to the Composite Recycling Technology Center. The goal being to provide the organization and help get an industry set up that can engage in some innovative work to create some new products to move Clallam County towards a direction of prosperity. And in that sense, the Natural Resources Innovation Center is the logical next step. And so let's move to the next step. All right, so ICAP. Colleen, do you want to start with ICAP since I think you had the initial correspondence here?
Sure, happy to. ICAP is the Innovation Cluster Accelerator program. That's a program that the state created. There are currently 9 different clusters in the state, ranging from Maritime Blue, which focuses on trying to electrify the marine industry, to the built environment and hydrogen programs, etc. So innovations where they're trying to create different kind of focuses for their communities so that that become localized and then statewide and then potentially nationally and globally. There's a lot of work that has been done in Europe, and it's been very successful there. So a lot of the grant work that we've been awarded has to do with understanding how to have a successful innovation cluster.
Okay, next slides. All right, anything there that we haven't really covered? I suppose so. You know, one of the keys for us has been that whatever direction that we were going to propose moving in, that it be industry driven, because the idea here is to increase the level of prosperity in Clallam County. And we're not going to do that without attracting businesses that are able to be competitive, be able to be profitable, and to be able to provide opportunities for residents to obtain the knowledge and the skills and the abilities, often with the assistance of training centers, be those the high schools or Peninsula College, so that individuals can experience wage progression and move towards prosperity. And the EDC community survey indicated there certainly wasn't very much prosperity for working people in Clallam County. This particular slide summarizes some of the elements of the ICAP program, and you're all certainly welcome to read through those, but we have a long story, so I think we should move forward.
Okay.
All right. So Colleen, I think that you modified this slide, so I don't know what it's going to look like today. The next one.
Oh, no, I didn't. This is yours.
Oh, well, then just move on because it's not complete.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we got to cover though the recompete.
Yeah, but we should change the slide. Move forward. Thank you. Recompete, we don't know, we know some things about recompete, correct? And there's things that we don't know about recompete. What we do know is that it offers a high level, potentially offers a high level of funding, anywhere from $10 to $100 million for the counties that are actually selected nationally. We know that it's going to be highly competitive. We had an opportunity to provide input at a working meeting in Tacoma with Representative Kilmer and leaders from EDA. We know that they're going to be focusing on prime age employment and increasing prime age employment participation rates for people 25 to 54. We don't know how that's going to be measured. We don't know what the actual elements of the recompete grant are going to be looking like. We're waiting nervously, right, for the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunities, to be released. We believe that this is going to move forward very, very rapidly. Anything else?
Yeah, well, Congressman Kilmer's staff shared with us that the NOFO on the recompete grant would be released in May. And so at the end of this month, we got another week or so, and then we'll know a whole lot more about it. It was appropriated, $200 million was appropriated in the CHIPS and Science Act, and it says that the award will be a minimum of $20 million. But what's coming out of EDA so far from Congressman Kilmer's office and their networks is that the first round will be planning grant funding, so you can create a full recompete plan, and then they'll read all the different recompete plans that they have funded and then award just a few to receive a lot of capital funds to implement their plan. That's the current state of intelligence today.
All right. Well, should we talk about the center now?
Yep.
That's a long story.
Yep.
All right. Well, to understand the center itself and the directions that it's going, we've developed a set of 5 criteria that would be used to screen business or industry innovations that we would actually provide the resources to assist them in moving forward. And they would have to meet all 5 of these criteria. Notice the emphasis on a prosperity wage, and there's a clear definition of how to construct a prosperity wage in the EDC 5-year plan, and I would encourage people to take a look at it. I mean, for 2 adults with 1 child, we came up with a combined gross family income of $115,000 for that family to experience prosperity. And there's not a lot of avenues for individuals in Clallam County to actually achieve that. We believe that the skills, the knowledge, the abilities of
Sorry.
It's okay, of the workforce, right? Our focus is on increasing prosperity in Clallam County, and that's the objective of recompete. It's not to increase prosperity of people who already live somebody else and they move here. It's to focus on the folks that are already here. So workforce training, industry-driven standards, institutions that we have here, educational, they're going to play a critical role in that.
I think I want to add one more point, and that is that the economists behind the recompete plan that Congress has implemented, his name is Bartik, and he's a PhD, part of the Upjohn Institute, and he has done a lot of research on persistently impoverished communities. And what he has been able to show and convince Congress, and certainly Representative Kilmer of, is that if you don't get people that are 25 to 54 years old into the workforce at a rate equivalent to the average of the United States, then you won't, no matter what that community does, they won't be successful in moving out of poverty and into prosperity. So that's the whole focus of Recompete, is getting our existing population to engage into the labor force.
Absolutely. And the types of social problems that are associated with communities that have persistently high unemployment in this prime age group, those metrics fit Clallam County extremely well. And we could talk about those at another time, but I think that those of us that are really looking at what's been going on in Clallam County the last 25, 30 years, we've really been seeing it happen. Moving on with the 5 criteria, this business or industry also has to be competitive. It has to be economically viable. And if it is, it should also be able to attract investment capital. We want to be focusing on new methods and new technologies. We want to maximize the amount of value added that can be obtained from any quantity of energy and material resources, and at the same time reducing waste and turning those into valuable products as well. The types of products that we're looking at will not only be economically sustainable, but they'll also help mitigate environmental problems, especially climate change. And the last thing I think that's important is that we need solutions today, we need solutions tomorrow, and we need them in the future. I've been here for 30 years and I've been people talking about, well, we'll have this in 10 years, we'll have this in 20 years. But what we have is a community that does not experience prosperity. And the facts are that the level of prosperity has been declining year after year after year. In 1992, the average wage in Clallam County was 85% of the state average. Today, it's less than 65%. So we need solutions now. So we can move on to the next slide.
Okay. Yep.
And so I do want to emphasize that, the center is just beginning. We're just beginning to think these things through. And so these slides are just suggestive. They're certainly not final at this point. And economics of research and development is that what we're really talking about are information flows that can be acted upon by the various players associated with NRIC. Some of those players are going to be research institutions at Washington State University, the University of Washington, ideally at the Department of Natural Resources. And I've already had some contacts with the United States Forest in the same sense. And it's also then information flows are going to be associated with existing employers. And there should be a new box at the bottom there. There should also be.
Hey, Dan,
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
breaking up. You want to come over here and talk from this?
Yeah, I will do that. I'm on my way.
Okay. He's in the next room. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and then we can go from there.
I'm here.
Okay, here,
Oh, I can just sit back here. Everything's fine. Live by technology, die by technology. I'm just dying slowly today. Okay, so there should be another box at the bottom there, which would be new businesses, new industries. And so when I start thinking about these innovation flows, and again, working on the economics of research and development, that was one of my fields in graduate school. These research organizations, it will be of benefit to NRIC for them to be hearing from industry about the types of challenges and the directions that they would like to think about moving in terms of innovation developments. And so that's why the arrows flow in both directions. And so as these organizations believe that they're coming up with solutions, those solutions then can be pragmatically evaluated in a business environment. And in the world of academia, in the world of research, you don't see a lot of that going on right now. And so I think that this type of an organizational approach can be quite useful. In a similar sense, as we think about NRIC acting as a hub for these information flows, at one of our initial organizational settings, it was suggested that an inventory be created locally for all of the waste products that are produced, byproducts that are produced by the various businesses in Clallam County, because oftentimes those waste products can be transformed into an economically viable product that has value added, which thus supports more employment and ideally at better wages. So that's some of the ideas that I tried to capture in this initial slide here. So we'll see how that goes. We have a meeting next week with Dr. Bernard Borman he's the director of the Olympic Natural Resource Center and a professor at the School of Environmental and Forest Sciences at the University of Washington. So we'll be meeting with him to talk about a potential role that they can play there. As I mentioned, I've already talked to a research scientist who's involved in utilizing information technologies like LiDAR for forest inventory systems. And he's quite interested, especially in the pragmatic orientation that we have here. It dawned on me that one of my classmates at the University of Washington is now the dean at the College of Forest Resources at Washington State University.
Yeah.
So I'll be calling Mark soon and sharing with him what we're doing.
And then, so they may not.
Yeah, so CFR, that's the College of Forest Resources at Washington State University. And DNR is the Department of Natural Resources, whom we have not talked with. Oh, I think you contacted them. Yeah, Mona. So we're beginning them. And as I mentioned, the United States Forest Service in Olympia, and then the Olympic Natural Resource Center at the University of Washington there at the end. And then some of our large scale local employers would be Evergreen, Fiber, and they've been involved early on in this process, and they are part of the team. Yep. And same thing for Interfor and Port Angeles Hardwood and McKinley Paper. So all quite supportive of what we're doing. I haven't put into this slide yet, but I should. Another one that's missing is the Composite Recycling Technology Center.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about them next. Okay, so this example here comes from Dave Wolter. He's the CEO at CRTC. And again, they go back to what, about 2014? 16? Well, we probably started in 14. Yeah, okay. And if you don't know, Colleen was one of the driving forces behind the creation of the Composite Recycling Technology Center. And they've been working on a very innovative product called advanced cross-laminated timber building panels, and we'll show you a little bit more about those later. So this is what Dave shared with us as we got started on this a few months ago. The Makah tribe has about 30,000 acres. They're mostly growing coastal western hemlock out there, which is a fast growing tree out there. Because of the shady conditions and what we know about how they actually photosynthesize hemlock trees, much like redwood trees, and there's a lot of moisture, they grow really, really, really fast, which creates an unstable wood, which is not good for building materials.
And it's about 80% of their inventory is western coastal hemlock down there.
Yeah, so here we have a relatively low value wood, and we're going to show you how you can turn it into a high value product. So one of the things we're emphasizing here as we began to envision what NRIC could look like was to first off think about what are we going to do now and what are we going to do tomorrow? And this is one of those examples. We can go to the next slide.
And CRTC helped the contractor get a $2.3 million to install a kiln out at their on their reservation, so that they could not just sell their timber, their logs, but they could create dimensional lumber with it and then sell that, which increases the value of those their products, their resources
And to the tribe. All right, so these cross-laminated panels that, and we'll show you in a little bit more detail soon. Basically what it does is it creates a structure, a building panel that can be engineered in such a way that you can stack these things up and then assemble them on site. So these would be actually quite nice structures. They're quite aesthetic, especially the wood interiors, and they have a number of applications. They're working right now on a contract with the United States military. This could be used for homeless housing, and they're working on a project for that as well. And they're also looking at ADUs, accessible dwelling units, to address the housing shortage in Washington State and across the United States of America. And in Clallam County. So those are near term. Also, in motion right now for the intermediate term one of the products will be humus soil, which is produced by the Sustainable Green team. And they have patented a process whereby they can take organic waste, and rather than using methane releasing composting processes, they use a fermentation process to create a soil amendment rich in nutrients, and it also contains water. So notice that in this production process, a greenhouse gas, which is associated with composting organic wastes, is eliminated. Pretty cool. Biochar is another product. You want to talk about biochar?
So there have been long conversations being had.
We can't hear Colleen.
Okay, sorry about
That, thank you, Ray. There have been numerous conversations that between Jamestown, Sklallam Tribe, and the Herman brothers that own Evergreen Fiber about creating a biochar company and facility in partnership. They both were very involved with minocarbon that determined that there wasn't enough industrially zoned property for them in our county that was contiguous. So they ended up going to, anyways, Stevens County. And, but so because both Jamestown and Herman Brothers were very involved with that, they have continued their conversations, believe they need to right size it for Clallam County, not go as big as what minocarbon was thinking, but they definitely believe there's an opportunity there that both entities would like to pursue in partnership. Go ahead.
I will. So those are some examples of the types of demonstrated products that are economically viable, that we're also thinking about trying to use the center to move towards in the intermediate term, 2 to 7 years. In the long term, one of the byproducts of biochar production is a syngas. Of course, the energy in it's a green energy because it comes from a renewable resource. It can be used as an energy source, but it's also possible to strip hydrogen from that syngas. And it's this economist's opinion that hydrogen is a far more efficient solution to long-term energy needs through fuel cells and other technologies as well. So that is a likelihood. And then another emerging industry are cellulistic nanomaterials. That's the CNMs, which are the spinoffs, the chemical engineering spinoffs are truly amazing. Right now, CNMs are used in the production of concrete. It reduces the quantity of baked lime that's necessary in the adherence process of concrete production. And it's the baking of lime, which is responsible for most of the carbon dioxide emissions in concrete. It reduces the CO2 emissions by about 30%. And it's now being tested commercially in bridge construction in California. So this is another industry that has significant potential. Okay, so next slide. So there we go. So this is kind of the equation that we're trying to work with here, if this helps kind of summarize things. Growing wood on a sustainable basis, we're sequestering carbon because the carbon in the trees that are harvested goes into long-term building products where it resumes, and new trees are growing very rapidly, especially in in temperate rainforests, removing more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. These products that we're talking about are substitutes for carbon-intensive building materials like steel. So the total emissions go down as a result. Soil amendments are very important for agricultural production. In this case, we're reducing the emissions of methane into the atmosphere, which is a greenhouse gas that on a molecular level has a 20 times greater impact on global warming than does carbon dioxide. We're looking towards using these products for housing solutions, producing green energy, and prosperity for Clallam County residents at the same time. And Jefferson. Thank you. Okay, so you want to summarize the employers? I need to catch my breath.
Sure. So the list at present that are involved in this and doing innovative things, and we just now started to reach out to Port Townsend Paper, and they probably should be on this list somewhere as well. Just don't know what innovations they're pursuing in their processes. But that's something Cindy is working on with us and from EDC Team Jefferson. The Makah tribe currently has 23 people that are harvesting Western coastal hemlock on their 30,000 acres or so. The CRTC currently has 32 employees that are working on the development of the CLT panels for military uses. They received a $5.5 million contract with the military to produce quick erect facilities for the military to demonstrate how that's done. And you'll see more pictures of that in the slides going forward. McKinley, of course, is using recycled cardboard and creating clean energy generation through their cogen plant. And then Evergreen Fiber is taking the byproducts, the residuals from the timber operations and using that in bioenergy and for materials for Port Townsend Paper, McKinley, and others. Near term, the Makah tribe, with the grant that the CRTC worked on with them, will create an additional 11 jobs for the harvesting and milling of the Western coastal hemlock. The CRTC is going to double in size with the manufacture of these advanced CLT panels for the military project. And then Sustainable Green Team is looking at 30 jobs out in the West End for collection of local organic materials to create humus soil, which that could be, I want to get them on a coffee chat just so that you can learn all about that process. They presented at the United Nations and at their sustainability committee, and then also at their food and agriculture organization with the UN, because it's such a transformative technology that's being used all over the world. And Sustainable Green Team has the rights to deliver this material and sell the catalyst in the United States. So it's all about the microbe kingdom in the ground and how it will create regenerative agriculture and much more nutrient dense food products. So, and then here's the potential. So we went through on this last slide, present and near term, and then here's potential. And the big one that we're really focused on, and it will be a real test case. Can we, and this will be a big focus of if, we get the planning grant for recompete, which I feel strongly that we would, that can we produce ADUs at a price point that makes sense economically for people to say, okay, yeah, I live on an acre and a half. I would put that in my backyard and I could rent it for a reasonable rate so that I get a return on my investment. And so understanding and defining what is that price point we'll have a lot of assumptions, but we want to come up with a worst case, best case scenario so that we can understand the viability of that. And Cindy has been following a company called Green Canopy Node. Cindy, you want to share anything about that briefly?
Yeah, I haven't spoken with them recently, but they're two companies that merged. They're working on using cross-laminated timber to create flat packed homes, actually, that are net zero, and they're working on getting down to carbon zero. With all the inflation and changes in the economy recently, it's been more difficult to get to the price point, but I think they're using the Katera plant that's recently been vacated in the Spokane area to do some panel construction. And they've constructed a sample home, I think, in Spokane, but they're located in Seattle, and I think could be a resource for us to understand their process, which I think is really well thought through, like a really vertically integrated process that they've thought through in great detail. I think we could learn a lot from them.
Why don't you put their website in the chat for us?
Okay, I will.
That would be great. And let's see. So, okay, what military branch and where are the CRTC houses going? It is the demonstration center for the military. There is a, do you remember the name of it?
No, I mean, he might be back now. They just went out there to test.
Okay, yeah, they went out there to test. We're talking about the CRTC. And so it's not a particular military branch. It's more under Department of Defense. Okay, so the other potential is local small business suppliers for the interior of ADU components, construction firms to assemble ADUs. There would be jobs created there. We'll get into that a little bit more in a bit. Natural Resources Innovation Center, of course, potentially co-located with the CRTC. That's right there. And then Peninsula College, their program would grow substantially through this process if we're awarded funding through recompete. And again, a big focus would be employment at prosperity wages and increasing opportunities for our supply chain locally. All right, and this is a slide that Susie Ames spoke about to the county commissioners back in March. You want to speak to it?
Yeah, just very briefly, you know, the key here is that to have a workforce that has the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities that employers need, the training needs to be driven by industry. And so it's critical to have the leaders at educational institutions to not only understand this, but to embrace the importance and to understand how to actually put it into process. And I think that in the discussions that I've been present with Dr. Ames is that she gets it. And I think that that's reflected in these bullet points that are right here. And I leave it at that, I think.
Just yesterday, Dr. Ames and I met with someone from the Gates Foundation and provided this presentation to them, and they're very excited about it and talked about wanting to asked us to apply for funding in June from them to support capacity building for this project.
Okay, we'll go through Dave's slides real quick here. These are pretty exciting. You know, we actually talked about this back in 2014 as a product, and and he's put it together. He's made it work. So we talked about the mills and the wood. So let's go forward because I think we're running out of time here. All right, so there we go. Here's the technological process. So these trees are harvested. They're milled dimensionally. They're kiln dried. And then they're on stickers there for airspace. They're put into those giant thermal chambers there for thermal modification. And this wood is heated to about 400 degrees. And the result of this is that it eliminates the moisture and it transforms the lignin and the cellulose in such a way that the wood becomes basically impervious to microbes and fungi from rotting the wood. So what you have here is a wood that doesn't decay. However, you do this without using chemicals. So there's another environmental benefit to this particular transformation process there. So I believe that they're going to get this thermal modifier this summer, and it'll be the only one in Washington State.
Yeah.
Hold on.
How are you?
I gotta put Chris on mute.
The word I used yesterday is.
Hey, Chris, muting you. Okay. All right, next slide. But I also wanted to show whoops, let me go back here. I'm going to go back to that slide for a minute. This is what I wanted to show. So here's a piece of coastal hemlock, and you probably can't see this very well, but you see how far apart the rings are. This has not been thermally treated. And then this one has been thermally treated. And you can see the grains are much closer together. And the width of this is also, I mean, it started out this size and went to something much, it's thinner now. So, but the big thing is that the grain is much tighter than it was prior to being thermally treated. Yep, there we go.
All right, so another advantage of the advanced cross-laminated timber here is that the strength comes from 3 layers of wood, and then those carbon fiber rods that you see in there, which are recycled byproducts from the aerospace industry. So instead of going into a landfill, it's going into these panels. And the strength of those 3-layer panels is equivalent to a wood-only 5-layer plant panel. So what we're doing now is creating a larger volume of housing from a smaller volume of wood by recycling a waste material, a hazardous waste material that would have gone into a landfill. So I'm emphasizing these significant environmental benefits that can be derived while solving pressing societal issues like a shortage of affordable housing. How is that?
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, and Dave was able to demonstrate that you can put up one of these in 3 days. And so we haven't gotten into that slide yet, but here's an example of CLT, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is at the Shore Aquatic Center. So go ahead.
Yeah, so again, CLT has all types of really exciting benefits. The United States is about 20 years behind Europe in using this as a building material. Why? I don't know. We have much better developed wood products industry than they do, but we've fallen behind on this environmentally beneficial technology. It has strength, it's aesthetic. On a construction site, because the panels are pre-assembled, buildings go up far more quickly, right? So you don't have congestion, you don't have a lot of machinery running. And these large panels here are heavy and it required large scale equipment to put them in place. These housing panels that CRTC is developing, 2 people can move them around by hand. And in fact, they actually have one of their homeless shelters that's been assembled in their warehouse. If you want to go and take a look at it.
Yeah, and what is it Janicki up in Federal Woolley, I believe,
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
working on a CLT facility, and that is expected to be $100 million in capital expense. But this would be, they'll be able to put this together for about 2 million, so a 50 time reduction.
Yeah, and Dave's looking at, they're going to be in production by the end of this year.
Pretty exciting. Yep. So that's going for it. It's happening now. So this picture is an example.
That's the shelter.
Of the shelter that they have been working on, that's being used in material testing and testing for the military. They put up these kind of things. But this I noted is not a 4x4 panel. And so if you look at this was an earlier design.
Oh, okay.
And so their current version is using 4x4 panels that only weigh about 100 pounds. So 2 people can assemble it. You don't need, heavy equipment to assemble it. So
The interior is very aesthetic. It's really gorgeous.
it still does need, hardy
Exterior.
plank or something
Exterior.
like that, but it does have good insulation properties, and they're showing potential ballistic resistance as well. So it's just at the beginning of all the design and thinking about how we can do things. Let's see. So consortium driven investments might include infrastructure. I think that's the most important thing, is we have to have more high paying jobs that will incentivize people to get into the labor force. And in order to do that, we have to have companies that are willing to invest their own risk capital, their own money in, and then banks that would loan on a business plan that makes sense. And then, so we would not fund, say, very likely, I don't envision actually funding a facility, but rather the infrastructure to the facility to lower the costs of the full development, so that it could be owned outside of government. Yep, sure.
And Bruce may, if we have some time later, Bruce Emery might want to talk to this to some extent. You know, the three things that I've learned from you, Colleen, that attracting potential businesses here, the problems that we run into is we don't have large enough parcels of land that even if we have them, they don't have water and sewer and they don't have electricity. So we need to put those three things together. They're a barrier to investment. Not only are they expensive, it takes a long time with coding issues and everything else to move those forward.
Bruce or Chris Harmon, do you guys want to add anything to that? I know they've lived in this world.
Well, there's not much to add. I think what he said is absolutely right. You know, that's part of what we have to do. There's a lot of coordination that still needs to be done with the service providers, the local city jurisdictions, and so on. It's part of the lift we're looking at doing as part of our comprehensive plan update required under the GMA. So more to come. There's some alternatives out there. I mean, for one thing, commercial forest land does allow some industrial land use. The problem is getting the services in those areas and doing it in a way that doesn't encourage adjacent encroachment into our valuable commercial forest lands. So it's not an easy needle to thread, but we are certainly going to be working on it.
Great. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
So some other areas that would receive investment if we got, 50, 80, 100 million would be obviously supporting Peninsula College workforce training. And what Susie said just day before yesterday was we need to know what skills businesses need for their employees and what kind of equipment, what kind of facilities. And so based on that direction, they would create some programs and use the funding to develop the curriculum and the facilities and hire people to provide that workforce training. Because the state does not fund new programs, and it is very expensive to do that. So the next area would be with the school districts, funding facilities that would support, a stacked kind of credential program that would get people into the workforce. Now, Recompete really is focused on 25 to 54-year-olds, but those 17-year-olds in high school, 8 years later would be in that cohort of 25 to 54-year-olds. So we need to have pathways for people to stay here in Clallam and Jefferson counties and be trained in a skill that will allow them to progress and have a successful, prosperous career. Also, we know that housing is a barrier. So it could be that some of the funds would be spent on creating the infrastructure, the urban services, or maybe even a land bank. And maybe, it's not these ADUs that are placed there. Maybe it is, but it would we can spend money on lowering the cost of housing. And then, of course, childcare services, that we need to further subsidize that. So parents that are not in the workforce because it doesn't pencil out, allow them to have additionally subsidized childcare services so that they can enter into the workforce. And then also potentially waterfront infrastructure investments, barging facilities, improvements there with the port to, for logistics, moving these products, whether it be humus soil or it could be, moving these ADUs through barging.
Can I just
Yeah,
kind of summarize? I think that the suggestions that Colleen has just shared with everyone today are really consistent with this economic development literature. And one of the things that is emphasized, I think, is that it's really important on a regional level to identify what the barriers to workforce participation actually are. And I think this list is a good thing, a good way of addressing that, and then try to provide innovative solutions to solve those barriers. And we see that on this list, and childcare services is often listed. There's some other things too, for like low-cost auto repair that keep people from going to work. But I think from the longer term perspective, it's changing cultural perceptions about people's role in their community and what their future can look like. And when I look at Clallam County, I don't see people seeing much of a future. And so we're trying to provide an alternative vision there. And as individuals at different ages see that people, by participating in particular activities, can improve their quality of life, they're more than likely going to want to do the same thing.
Nicely said, Dan. Okay, so the future we could have, this kind of moves into this slide. It would position Clallam County as a national cluster for natural resource innovations. Oh, I should rewrite that and say Jefferson. I've
yes.
seen several corrections I need to make here. And NREC would build on our county's highest paying economic sector with 200 more employees. It will be the state's only cluster focusing on innovations in natural resources, and it'll improve soil for farmers, reduce carbon emissions, increase number of housing units. We're all interested in that. Launches entrepreneurial businesses and produce the energy source for resilient microgrid systems. And it will create manufacturing jobs for our residents that pay a prosperity wage. So far, here are entities that have been engaged, and we did receive letters of support in our application from both the Makah tribe and the Jamestown-S'Klallam tribe. The CRTC was an important entity that helped us write the application to the state that got us designated as one of our state and federal clusters, innovation clusters. And also Port Angeles Hardwood, Herman Brothers, Bricks Marine, and also Evergreen Fiber probably should be added to the list. Bricks Marine, McKinley Paper. We hope to be adding soon Port Townsend Paper and Hayes Architects. So Hayes Architects, Ken Hayes, who also happens to be a PUD commissioner, has been very involved in this. And he said he would help design the ADUs for the CRTC at no cost. And then if they are pre-designed, then they don't need to receive certain permits. So that would then reduce the cost and reduce the timeline that it would take to get ADUs placed on property. Partners that we've been working with are Peninsula College and so far Sequim School District. We need to add other school districts to this list. Impact Washington, First Fed Bank has said they want to be on this consortium board that will help direct the applications and how we would fund things. And the Port of Port Angeles, Clallam EDC and EDC Team Jefferson. And again, we're just getting started. So any questions? We'll stop there. And let's see, look at what questions we have here in the, I see Brad Griffith has a question, and Cindy put the link in the chat if anybody wants to check out Green Canopy Node. And Brad, do you want to ask your question?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Stand by. Hi. So I haven't been on for a while. Thanks for doing all this. Colleen, I appreciate all your efforts. Over the years, I think you have done the best in coordinating everyone's efforts. So a little plug for Colleen, and then another plug somewhere in there for Colleen Robinson for Habitat. So some of you know my work. I've been doing CLT, or not CLT, structural insulated panels for several years to build emergency homeless shelters. Partnered with a friend of mine, and we've been building them. I've been putting it off for a year while I'm doing a remodel of my own house. But these panels are R13. I have full scale prototypes. They come in, the idea real quick is an 8x8 model spoons together and fits in a van or a pickup truck. Two men can carry them through a house into a backyard. They have to be used what I call you and I material. You and I could go to the lumberyard and get the products we need to make this. So now, long story short, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I'd love to talk more about this. I know this CLT world pretty well. I know Dave and what he's been doing.
Great.
So love the chat. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brad. And we've been having conversations around artificial intelligence as well. I'd love to update these slides I'm presenting to our board today. I need to, but we want to look at how artificial intelligence can be used more frequently for forest health and forest inventory, and or who knows what else. But I just talking about talking to some folks, and Matt asked ChatGPT, how is AI being used in the forestry industry today? And it spewed out a really good response. Right now, Google Earth and LiDAR is used to assess generally types of trees and the health of trees, but using AI, there now are some processes that are just coming out that are able to do that in a much more robust manner, better than a set of eyeballs can, and doing it much more quickly. And so, the sky's the limit on how that could be used with drone footage and the like. So we're going, I'd really like to see that involved, and I could see SQUIM having a role in that space. And yeah, I see, James, do you want to add anything?
Oh, it looks like I wasn't even muted. Okay, so we've been having several discussions about using ChatGPT and some of the programs that the remote workforce has felt are missing from Peninsula College. One of them is GIS, Geographical Information Systems. That particular curriculum is taught at only the bachelor's level. We've researched and haven't found GIS curriculums at the associate level, and the things you're describing is for the forestry component would be applicable to GIS.
Yeah.
The idea that you want to have very, very detailed mapping. And so that, I guess, is the only point I'm trying to make about GIS. And ChatGPT is here. It's being used. It's being used efficiently. And our good friend Steve is all up on it. So
great. All right. Well, we will be moving forward with Peninsula College, and trying to convene and ensure that ensuring that businesses can hear about innovations And then once the businesses say, okay, I'm investing, this is the direction I want to go, then pivoting to Peninsula College and our high schools to ensure that their curriculum supports the jobs that will be offered locally. So, well, with that, it's 8:58. Are there any other comments or questions anyone wants to add? If not, I'm going to call it a morning. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, Colleen, can I jump in?
Yes.
The
Sure.
Planning Commission is reviewing the Port Angeles Master Plan today at 6. So if anybody has an interest in that,
right.
they've been developing this plan, and so on the last meeting, there was no one in attendance to discuss the Port Angeles Master Plan.
Okay. Thanks, James. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.